Now, the Labour Party's Peter Obi this Thursday held a closed-door meeting with former President Goodluck Jonathan in Abuja. Obi, who disclosed the visit in a post on his official X, describes Jonathan as an elder brother, a statesman and leader, noting that their discussions centered on national issues and the state of the nation. There have been reports of former President Jonathan joining the 2027 presidential race, although he's not made any official statement on whether he will run and under which party he's likely to run. Now, Peter Obi, who has expressed support for the African Democratic Congress coalition, is yet to formally resign from the Labour Party or declare his membership of the ADC. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, on Wednesday expressed helplessness in the face of consistent violations of the Electoral Act regarding premature campaigns ahead of the 2027 elections. At a one-day roundtable on the flouting of the ban on early campaigns in Abuja, Yakubu explained that while the Electoral Act prohibited campaigns from starting earlier than 150 days before an election, it lacked specific sanctions for contravention. Now, he said this has made it difficult for the Commission to enforce the law, as the existing penalties are aimed at campaigns conducted within 24 hours of an election. Right, joining me now to discuss INEC's inability to sanction parties, groups and individuals involved in premature campaigns is Ezenwa. Nwagu is a democratic reforms advocate. Thank you very much for joining us. Good to see you on Newsnight.
Thank you.
Let's start with INEC chairman's, helpless posture, saying, look, the electoral law does not necessarily empower INEC, or INEC, as a matter of fact, doesn't have the powers to restrict or stop politicians from premature campaigning.
Well, I don't think INEC should portray that helplessness. Part of what it has done is the convening that was done just a few days ago and brought stakeholders to look at the challenge. And I think that's the right thing to do. But it's a complicated conversation.
Right.
Because the first thing to define is what is campaign. And political campaign,
yes,
electioneering campain.
How do you define it?
That definition becomes very challenging, because at the end of the day, you find that it's not clear whether in the Electoral Act as to political campaign. And if you then stretch it, so much can then play as campaign. And if you were in that conference, or if you watched some of what the participants were saying, you could have a situation in which a governor is launching a project and goes to the project. That should be a campaign, because he's going to talk about what he has done.
Yes.
So incumbents of the different political parties use their platforms to advance what I will call, in quote, dubious advantage, politically dubious advantage. And because they know that the loophole, there is that loophole in the law. And elongated and prolonged litigation in the courts after election can also be seen as a form of campaign, because you create victimhood at the end of the day. And then if somebody goes to court knowing fully whether he or she did not win the election, but every time that matter comes up in court, it is some kind of, conversation, putting somebody in bad light and creating victim,
giving advantage to another. Right.
So, but all of that, the challenge comes back to the law. The people who make the law are the politicians, whether in the executive or in the legislature. They create those loopholes that they are taking advantage of. And that's not the only place where that happens. Right. If you come to issue around vote buying, for instance, they talk about use of money within 300 meters of voting. So even if you go to you come to my house and I give you money for the purpose of voting for me, which I know is inducement, even if I begin to construct roads 2 months to election, that I know that are inducement, all of that is not captured within the law. But does the law capture everything? It does not. So it has to be a mindset shift. It has to be something that politicians of the different hue. You talk about incumbents placing bid balls or people placing them on their behalf.
Third parties, especially.
No, even those.
How?
No,
Can you? Speaking of third parties, I mean, you are just drifting in that direction. Can they be held vicariously responsible for what they're?
The challenge is that an opponent can put billboards in the name of Ngozi.
There you go. So can you hold me responsible?
No,
for
that's
that?
what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, if the regulatory authorities, MBC, APCON, and the rest of them, that's why you need a multi-stakeholder relationship around, premature campaigns, and then get the National Assembly to have a clear definition of what it is, and then place real sanctions on those. Because at the end of the day, people attend naming ceremonies, people go for burials, people go to visit traditional rulers, while they are not. Then you can't criminalize aspiration. You can't say people who want to run election cannot even put adverts, teaser adverts. Like if somebody, the APCON DG was saying in that program that if Ngozi says, if there's a billboard saying Ngozi is coming, why should I go and hold anybody responsible for Ngozi is coming? I don't know where the person is coming to. So all those technical difficulties can be unpacked by a forward-looking lawmaking institution.
Well, according to the INEC chairman, the legal framework itself is he says the electoral law itself is the problem, and not necessarily maybe even the politicians, but the electoral law has not really been able to address this ambiguities that you talk about.
So how do you, who makes the laws?
Where do you start from?
No, who makes the laws?
You mentioned National Assembly. What exactly do we expect the National Assembly to be doing now? What can the National Assembly do
first is that they are beneficiaries of the perfidy.
Okay.
So what you need is a multi-stakeholder relationship, and that's what Professor Jega, who gave the keynote in that conference, did. Civil society, the media, and self-respecting Nigerians must come together to say, look, this obscene, premature, campaign, in quotes, needs to stop. And because it creates tension, it puts, an unhealthy, rivalry within the environment, and the incumbents, not just at the presidency, even the governors. If you go to any state in Nigeria, you are accosted from the airport of billboards, of incumbents. That itself can be said to be campaign, and if you want to criminalize that. But the real work of it is to have a thorough reflection around what constitutes,
premature campaigns
and the dangers that it portends, and the place to go.
Let's even talk about the dangers it portends. I mean, some would say, look, it's bad governance that really fuels premature campaigns when people don't deliver on the goods in terms of democratic, what's that phrase that we use again? Dividends of democracy, thank you. That, they just try to tilt away from that and begin to campaign because they know that they've really not, delivered
so
on good governance.
You situate that to being, when you situate it to those in power. But politicians are not only those in power.
Right.
Like I said,
those who want to,
remove those in power, also use
guilty.
weddings. They go for naming ceremonies. They go for burials, and in those burials, when they are giving the microphone,
they take advantage
and begin to talk about things. So taking all of it collectively, it has to be a conversation between IPAC, civil society, the media, security, and INEC itself, and the politicians represented by their political party, sitting in one place and say, listen, is there a rethink in terms of how we can begin to approach these things? Yes, the incumbents misuse and abuse the office that they occupy and abandon responsibility to citizens and begin to do, to think about the next election. And those who want to take over from them use different means as well to put themselves, to put themselves in public space.
Very quickly, Atahiru Jega, former INEC chairman.
Before you go on, the people themselves will also need to recouch our language, because when people don't do that also, we say they are not serious.
When you say recount our language,
no,
in what sense
for instance,
exactly?
if I want to run election,
right,
and I'm waiting for the appropriate legal time,
right,
the same people will come back and say, no, Eze is not serious. He says he wants to run election
and he's not doing anything.
And he's not doing anything.
Right. So there's a need for a culture shift, a mindset shift. Let's talk about a point raised by Atahiru Jega, former INEC chairman. He's calling for, specialized election offences commission and tribunal to investigate and prosecute offenders. I mean, do you think this will address, at least to a very large extent, this issue of premature campaigning? And alongside that, also talk about the funding, how to track, because that's another issue that was raised at this round table.
If there is no offense, if the law does not say something is an offense, you can't make it one. So the first place is to get a proper legal framework. So if you have a proper legal framework, then the Special Offences Tribunal can have something to investigate, sanction. But where that legal lacuna exists, you cannot, the Special Offences Tribunal would be relevant. Yes, but I think we should push this away from an idle talk to much more deeper reflection about the nature, character, complexion of our political class. A political class that is immersed in taking, every time, subverting the law, taking undue and dubious advantage, if you like, and with that, and it doesn't matter whether they are in position or opposition. Right. Because the difference here is not even more. Their thinking, their complexion is the same. The difference between 6 and half a dozen. Yes, and I was watching, and somebody here was saying, the anti-corruption agencies needs to, not try people. And the man was in a government where judges were arrested in broad daylight and were taken to court, and he didn't resign. Nothing happened. It's a multifaceted, challenge. Let's talk about another point that was raised. Third-party groups that act on behalf of the political parties and the candidates. Like I asked before, can you actually hold, the people they are supporting responsible? If women, they don't have a vicarious liability. Right. Because of the complexioning that I talked about. If somebody goes and plays adverts, without your knowledge, the intent of that person and motive may not necessarily be to, if he finds out there's a law that criminalizes doing that, it could be to implicate you if you have vicarious there you go. Liability. Okay. Yes. So, but again, the regulatory authorities can make clear rules and regulations. And by that I mean APCON, NBC, Bond and such other, regulatory, Institute of Public Relations, Nigerian Press Council, all of this can come together and think through how to, get through this challenge. Well, but the next thing is, who is complaining? I think that's a billion-dollar question that you're asking. Who is complaining? Maybe they're just a reflection of the larger society. Ezenwa Nwagu, thank you very much for joining us and helping us unpack these issues tonight.